So I like to use stencils and create using stencils. So I'm going to do that. One of my most favorite of the new releases, don't tell the rest, is this Eclipse. It's a black, flat, matte, and it's very, very fine. So it's very different than most of our other powders, which are really textural. But what I've discovered with this is that it's seriously opaque, and I've been using the blackest of ink pads to stamp, and then I use this next to it, and the black of the ink pad looks gray next to this. So this has now become sort of my default. Whenever I stamp, I'm using this, and there's the white version as well. So what I'm going to do, instead of doing it with stamping, I'm going to do it with a stencil. So I'm just going to find the stencil here in the pile. Yeah, I'm going to use that. I think that's a cool image.
We have Marlene saying hi, and Katie from the UK saying hi.
Hey guys.
These are stencils. Can you say where they're from?
This is from Stencil Girl Products. I have a line of stencils with Stencil Girl, but I'm an equal opportunity designer, so this is not one of my stencils. This is from Danielle Wolf. So if you happen to like this one, but you go to stencilgirl.com and you'll find stencilgirlproducts.com. You'll find all their stencils.
And this is embossing powders for the person who used.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a sponge and I'm going to put it on the embossing ink on the sponge, and I'm going to sponge through. By the way, one of the nice things about getting your pads dirty is you're more likely to be able to see where you're putting the embossing ink, so you don't always forget, which is easy to do when you can't see it. And I'm just going to work this kind of randomly. It's a beautiful stencil to do that with. Yeah, and let's just see what we get. And, you know, on camera, maybe you'll catch the light and see where it is, but generally speaking, it's really hard to see. But you're going to see it perfectly well as soon as I do this. So again, this is Eclipse. It's in our neutrals kit. Baked Velvet.
Anthony says hi.
Anthony?
Yep.
Hey, Anthony! So what I love to do is then just do that. I just think that's just magic. And I got that gorgeous stencil there. And then I'm going to close it up.
It's a really nice stencil.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah.
There's so many on the site, and I hadn't seen that one, so I like that you're doing this.
Yeah, there's a million of them, and sometimes some of the really good ones, especially the older ones, get lost. That's true on every site. So I'm going to hold it down, and I'm going to heat it, and this is just the blackest black. It's got this beautiful texture to it, really like velvet, and it just pops off a lighter background in such a big bad way. Similar, we have the white. Maybe I'll use that next. Yeah. Who?
Karen Rogers.
Hey, Kara. How are you? So you got that. It's an easy way to take your stencils kind of to a different level than just putting ink through it, and then you have the balance of it. Now, one of the things I love to do with stencils, because although I'm on camera so it might not work, is let the molten hot powder dry, and so it's cooler to the touch. If you're like me, you always want to touch it before you should. Okay, and then I'm going to replace the stencil. And I actually got it right this time. And then what I could do, well, I could just reheat it, but I'm going to go ahead with the Versamark, and I'm going to very randomly take the sponge, and I'm going to kind of hit. I really want it kind of random. Sometimes with a sponge you're going to get some lines, and that's not what I want, but yeah, I'm going to do that. Okay, I go overboard a little bit. And then I'm going to disappear again. Sorry, guys. Oh, it's in my other bag. All right, so I was going to disappear to try to find a different color that I brought.
Seth, what do you just zoom in a little bit so you can see as it's cooled how it's gotten a little bit more flat?
I think that's for the mermaid collection.
It's not clear.
Isn't it?
It's going to have a purple to it.
Oh, this one. Oh,
Yeah,
I thought it was my
this
white
one.
cloud.
It is
Okay,
not your
so
white
I'm on
cloud.
camera, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do something. I wanted something kind of light
catch.
and contrasty.
Desert?
What's that?
Desert?
Sure. Let's do some desert. So this is in the same line. It is part of the big velvets, and it's in the neutral kit. So I'm going to go over, and hopefully we just got partial coverage. Well, we got a lot of coverage. Okay.
Do you want to use a brush?
Yeah.
I'm
So
gonna walk everyone before I begin.
I have one.
Okay.
So when you do that, and you feel like maybe there's a little bit too much there, if you take a brush that's clean and dry.
Do you want me to give you a clean dry one?
No, I'll fake it.
Okay.
And you can just begin to kind of sort of brush off or paint it with black. Okay, so what that's telling me is that I should need to leave it the way it is. And I'm just going to reheat it. You got to go with the flow, people.
That's when surprises happen.
Exactly. Well, this happens all the time when you're creating, and that's if you get stuck on that and feel like you've ruined it because something happens that you don't want to happen, you're in deep trouble with mixed media. And so while that's hot, I'm now going to go in and I'm going to add some other flavor to it.
Actually, it's brushed off his body.
Yeah, I like that too. Actually, really like that. So while it's hot, I'm going to, and we'll make it somewhat variable.
I love that one.
And we'll bring in some other colorations and just make it more interesting. I think a lot of times with stamping and stenciling and then using embossing powders, people kind of default to one layer. You know, they stamp through, they ink through a stencil and leave it. And I say ink with 3 or 4 or 5 different colors. And I feel that way with the embossing powder too. You just work your layers, and if you feel like they're too dark, add light. If they're too light, add some dark. And then now what I'm going to do to finish it off is I'm going to go back with the Eclipse, and I'm going to bring some of the black back in because that was way too much neutral with the desert color.
Best thing learned from your class with Kathy is to go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Yeah, I'm liking that much better. Now, if you feel like, oh, I loved it when it was all black, you could just fill it up with black again. But we're going to call that a day with that stencil. And you can see that it's kind of modeled, and
Lots of love.
probably what I would do if I had all the time in the world is I would now go in with a pen and I would highlight the edges, and so it would bring back the original stencil design much better.